Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second Wednesday of our conference. We got today and then 2 more days. Uh, as you know, this is the 15th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator. As you can see from the title, our session today is using OBS Studio for dynamic presentations and teaching. And I've used it a little bit. I've played with it from time to time. So I'll find it of interest to learn what a real user knows about and how to use it. Our presenter is Chiquito Cresto. He is a research associate professor at the Center for Biotechnology and Genomics at Texas Tech University. He's a Red Raider. He's also a graduate adjunct faculty at the Department of Computer Science and the Department of University Studies. And man, does he have a resume. He's a recipient of the Government of India National Merit Scholarship from the Indian Institute of Technology. He's got a doctorate in chemistry. He was awarded the prestigious Plain and Fancy postdoctoral fellowship at the Fox Chase Cancer Center. And he also continued his research at the Yale University School of Medicine, at the Department of Neuroscience, and the Center for Medical Informatics as an associate research science. I could go on, but it would take the rest of the session to get through it all. So, Chiquito, let me turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. But when I hear about Atul Gawande's Atul Gawande's resume, I think I need to work thrice as hard. But thank you, Mr. Hales, and any kind of organization, and Faye, Ellen, Kristen, LaKay, Lisa, and Elena. Welcome to this presentation. As I was mentioning to Bob. Teaching has been an avocation for me. So even despite all the, having kept a very aggressive research profile and having, been blessed enough to be trained at some of these really great places, I think, I think some of the greatest joys I've received is, sometimes just sitting with a student, talking with them, just showing them a little bit of kindness to somebody who's stressed out. That turns out to be the one that's the most fulfilling. And I'm not an inventor of any of this technology, but certainly I feel like that we need to adopt it. We are having this virtual conference, an exchange of ideas, etc. We are doing this, without getting on a plane and traveling, and technology has made all this possible. So adopting this technology to, to do this education is certainly, whoever's put the effort to build these instruments of education are to be completely lauded. Once again, just to repeat, I'm a research associate professor at the Center for Biotechnology and Genomics at Texas Tech, and welcome everybody. I've kept the chat box open in case anybody has anything to send me a message if something is not clear as the presentation evolves. Please feel free to also unmute and chime in and say something if you need to. We can always stop. Now, OBS is essentially the best software. There are many of this kind, but it also that also means that there is a learning curve when it comes to learning OBS. Okay, so I don't know in terms of what level of involvement each of the participants here has. Would you like to for example, as I go through this demonstration, do we have, I just like to at least show how where you can go and install it if you haven't already even installed. And you're absolutely right, Bob. It is free. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but in terms of features, it is really feature rich. So what I'm going to do, I have used I have used the kind of the uh, part of Zoom, the advanced presentation part of Zoom, which allows me to focus on a particular part of the screen. So I'm going to, if this moves too fast, don't feel too dizzy, but I'm going to move the parts of the screen to where I want, kind of to make a point here. So if you went to obsproject.com, download, and I know that this is being recorded, so this. If you don't already have OBS, feel free to use the video kind of as a step-by-step guide as to how to process this information. So you go to obsproject.com, download, and it'll take you to this page. And the operating system that you would have is, if you have Apple, if you have Windows, and if you have Linux. Now, the system automatically recognized that that I had a Windows system, so it lights it up. But if you can see, as I mouse over, the other ones also light up. You can also, I think it also recognizes that you have the automatic download. It already knows your system, and you can download it here. And again, I suspect that if you went with Mac, or you try to install it using the Linux system, it would automatically recognize what system you're coming from. Okay, so there are lots of things. We'll try and see how much I can get through, but here's a quick demonstration of the features, right? So I can go to, and I'll show each of this, in kind of in excruciating detail, so we really begin to understand. But here's a really cool thing. So if I have a folder open, I have a folder open right now, but you see what I can do is just at the click of a button, I can go to folder. I can go to, if I have a text file that I'm working on, you'll see that it's not there because right now a text file is not really open in my computer. So one of the things that you have to recognize is that whatever window that you want to show, and I'll show you how to open these windows. It does not have to clutter your desktop, but it at least has to be open. And even if it's minimized, that's perfectly fine. So as you can see, I moved the Zoom window to show you that you have a to see that there is a website available which you can download. But I'll come back to the PowerPoint screen, and one of the things. So let me now let me actually zoom on over to the PowerPoint and show you what happens. So I'm going to my PowerPoint, and I will go into the edit mode. And so you can see, I'll take it to the PowerPoint here, and you'll see part of the window where you'll see that it is that this is a typical PowerPoint, and the chat box kind of gets in the way, so I'll just keep it aside. So this is a PowerPoint window, right? Now, typically what happens is if you hit F5 or if you hit the little PowerPoint button, you'll see that it will eat up the entire screen. So how do you make sure that you can get the dynamics? You can do a PowerPoint presentation in the present mode, not in the edit mode. And again, granted that some of you probably already know this, but I'm just going to repeat it because this is the way I learned it too. I was like, well, how am I going to do a presentation if the entire screen is being taken by the PowerPoint presentation? So the way to do it would be, you would go to slideshow, and in the slideshow you'll see setup slideshow, and a typical default will be presented by a speaker. You see you don't, yeah, you see it right now because it's being shown in that is presented. That'll be the full screen. But if you go to the button below, it's going to be, if you said browsed by an individual in a window. So the moment you click that and hit OK, then what you can do is then it will show up exactly like you would expect to see it, but it won't take up the entire screen. So I'm going to hit F5 now on my PowerPoint, right? So that was about the PowerPoint. Now I showed you the browser by dragging the Zoom window over to the browser. But now let me show you how do we create these various scenes. So if I want to go from something called as a Python script, you can still see me, and you can go to the Python executable, and you can still see me. This is the course I'm teaching in advanced bioinformatics. I'm teaching it synchronous online. So it allows me to do that. I can see, so I can go from there back to the PowerPoint, which happens to be closed now. So and you can see it. You can see it shown up now. I'll show you how to create. Let's say, for example, you wanted to have a scene where you could just go to the browser and see what the browser is doing. All right. So I'll kind of manipulate the Zoom window a little bit. So you will see here that this is my entire OBS video, okay, the OBS studio, the entire window that opens up. So this is the part that I was focusing was on the part that people can see, but this is the entire video, and all the features are present here. And once again, if you have any questions, if I'm moving too fast, if I'm kind of moving the Zoom window a little quick, please feel free to chime in either by unmuting. So in this bottom corner here, you will see what are called scenes, okay? And I will show you how to use two scenes and how to kind of create them. So, so now I'm going to focus on this part, the part that the mouse is moving on. And so I'm going to make the Zoom window small so you can really focus on that, right? So these are various scenes, okay? And they're called scenes. So, one is a PowerPoint. That is the scene which you're seeing right now. And then the PowerPoint has a bunch of other features in it. Then I have what's called a Python script because I teach Python programming. And one is the script, and the other one allows people to see the executable. And there's a bunch of other things, for example, if I wanted to show somebody a text file or a Microsoft Word file, and you can see me type something on there in real time, essentially anything that you want can be screened. So, okay, now I want browsers. Okay, so first of all, I have to have a browser window open, okay, and kind of not minimized. So now, but I don't have a browser in here. So I want to create a new scene. And the new scene, in order to create a new scene, you see the plus sign here. I'm going to click on the plus sign, and I'm going to make the Zoom window a little bigger. And you'll see as soon as I put the plus sign, a little window opens up, an inset window which says add scene, okay, because I clicked on that plus sign. And we'll do this twice for several other things. So so we'll see what, so this way, the kind of the repetitive education will happen. So I'm just going to call it web. I'm just going to call the scene web. Now this is a scene. So I click OK, and you will see that it created a new scene that's highlighted here. Now for this web, how do I define web? Okay, so now it'll say that I want to go to the next part right beside it, and I have now what are called as sources. Okay, now in those sources, I click on the source, and let me make this window a little big. If I click on the source, you'll see it's got all kinds of things, right? And so this is a window. This is one window within this source. So I'm going to say window capture. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And there are many windows in here. So I want to make sure that a window, and it says window capture, but I'm going to call that window capture browser, because that's that's what it is now, because that window capture could be text file, anything. And because it says, is that a new one? Yes, because it's not been there before. If it's an existing one, I can say existing, but it's a new thing. So I'm just going to call it browser, and I click OK. Now I'm going to make this a little bigger, and it's going to give me in here, it's going to give me all the windows that are open. And I see that OBS Google Chrome is the window that I want to see. And here it is. And I click OK. Now let me make my window big to occupy the entire OBS studio. So now you see, first of all, let me move it to the browser, and you can see that there's the browser, and it's opened now in the window. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a size issue here, right? So I can take this red button and I can kind of make it big, small. I can scroll, if I scroll down on the window by going, for example, if I go to the window here, oops, I'm moving the wrong thing. So this is the Zoom window. I'm opening and showing you the window, all of it now. As I scroll up and down the window, you see that in the OBS window, the browser will also move. I can also alternatively go to my window and make it smaller, and the whole thing will fit in here, right? So now what happens is whatever you end up doing in the browser automatically shows up here, right? So one of the other things that we can do now we have this. Now, I know, I mean, everybody has their vanity, but anytime I show a window, I want, because as part of, because we're looking not just for the synchronous presentation, but we're looking um, for um, for teaching, right? So if I'm demonstrating something in my class in a browser, I say, well, it'd be nice to kind of, in a seamless way, have my students also look at me. Okay, so now I can go back into, now I already have the scene, right? I already have the scene, and you can see it's web. And then I already have the sources. Now, in this particular web scene, I can have many, many things happening. Okay, we already know there's the browser. So if I click on the browser, that's what's going to happen. But in this scene web, I can say now I also want, for example, a video capture device. Now your webcam, or if you have several webcams, it's going to call itself a video capture device. So I'm going to go to video capture device, and then I'm making it a little bigger, and it'll say um, the video capture device. You can see it's going to call it two, but I already have one. It's called cam. That's the one. That's the exact same one that you saw when I had the PowerPoint open. So I click on the one that's existing. I click on OK, and if you see really, if you see the browser, the window, now the cam opened. So now my web, you can see me pointing at the web. My web scene contains the browser as well as my picture. Now, I'm vain, but not that vain. So let me make myself a little littler, and then I can move I can move the cam anywhere I want. And so it goes from this part to the browser part, and then I can move the browser window. I can move the browser window also. So now what happens is whenever I can, and I can keep my PowerPoint open too. So now what happens is whenever I can go from PowerPoint, which puts me here, directly to web, which puts me here. And you can see that's the power of OBS in terms of the dynamic nature, is that no matter what resource I am demonstrating, my that seamless teaching of an instructor providing instruction doesn't go away. So I can demonstrate something on the web, and later I will show you how to use hotkeys so you don't have to scroll up and down and things like that. And I can go to my PowerPoint, and you can see what I'm clicking here. I can go to my PowerPoint scene, and I can and you kind of, and you can you can see what I'm doing this way, right? So they're seamless. Now, one more thing we can do is I can add, I can say, well, it'll be nice to have a place where, let's say I'm teaching from the, I'm demonstrating something on a web browser, I'm demonstrating something in a in PowerPoint, but I want to make a point and I want to make it more impactful. So I want to immediately switch to, to the OBS window filled with cam. So now what I want to do is I can now go in here, and let me just kind of highlight, make it a little bigger. I can go in here and I say, I want to create another scene. And the other scene, I click on that plus sign, and the next scene that I have, I can call it my webcam. Okay. And I hit OK, and it's in. But now, because it's looking for webcam, it can't find the webcam. So let me click on plus, and I said, for my webcam, I want only my video capture device. Okay, and the video capture device, I happen to have only one cam. So there's an existing one. I click on that, I click OK, and now you'll see that the cam opened exactly like it would. But now I can now use this button to make it bigger, to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I can fill out the whole screen. So now what happens is, let's say I'm teaching my PowerPoint, and then I teach something on the PowerPoint. I advance the slide, then I teach something on my thing. You can see that the education component is still there. And if I want to make an impactful point, I can switch. And this is just the result of the way of Notepad. It's a little better. So I'll just move the Zoom window and just show you this. And this is a student project that we are working on, and we're using I'm writing this program in a program called Perl. So I'm going to go back to the OBS window, and I can scroll down to text file and see I'd already set up the text file. Okay, so if I want to demonstrate something being typed or a program running, etc., I already set up the text file. How did I set up the text file? I just went, I created a scene called text file, and then I went to the window and I said window capture, right? So for example, we can click on, so for example, I went to window capture. I don't need it because it's already captured. I go to window capture, and then, and then it gave me all these choices of all the windows that were open. And, I can click the one that I want. Now, one of the things that I need to add is just, again, to make this whole thing seamless, is to say I need to add a cam. So I go to my text file, I go add a plus, because I said, now this scene requires a bunch of other things. And for example, this scene will require a video capture device. I know what it is because I already have only one cam. And now I can move the cam, for example here, and I can make the cam a little smaller so it doesn't completely eat up the whole window. So now what happens is I can, I'm trying to make a point. So I go to webcam. I need to demonstrate something on the web. So using my web browser, I can go to, I can go to the PowerPoint to continue with my PowerPoint. And then I say, oh, you know what, I want to show you this particular Perl script, which does some bio related things. So let's watch it run. And so what happens now is that allowing it. Now, on the other hand, you could also just say, well, I want a video playing in the background. So you can then, click a plus sign, and it can give you another media source. You can create another image slide. This one scene can have many different things. We just call it webcam or web because it's a descriptive title is always nicer, so you know exactly what to go from, right? You can color things. You can get audio from one source. You can get audio from another source. It's a little overkill. For example, there are a lot of people who use OBS Studio and then stream on YouTube. You can stream on YouTube. You can stream on kind of a Google thing. You can stream your video so people can actually go onto YouTube and you can watch it. But because of all the things you can do, you can open a video game and you can play the video game, and you can have people watch you play the video game. I don't know whether anybody in this group knows, there was a Swedish guy called PewDiePie, who's not on YouTube anymore. He called himself PewDiePie, and he had, I think at one point in time, he had the highest YouTube subscribers, I think something like 11 million. And all he would do was, I think there was something kind of personal magnetism about him. All he would do was he would sit and he would play video games, and just like kind of a running audio commentary. And I guess people would just sit and watch him, and he made a lot of money. Just from kind of YouTube ads and the sheer number of subscribers who would log on. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do. But again, we're focusing on the teaching aspects of it. Now, there is so were there any questions about how to create? Again, you can create something called Word, and if you want in the process of teaching, or just kind of you want a video record of you or recording a video record of you typing something, or you want to show people, you could create something called Excel, and then you could open an Excel spreadsheet and call it an Excel capture, and so essentially anything you want, but typically keep it simple. Stay with the PowerPoint and the webcam, and for example, if you want to be more dynamic in terms of flipping from one to the other, you can do that. It's not very hard once you kind of once you know how, and then you can then you can kind of mix and match. If you want a little video playing, for example, here as my mouse is pointing, you can have the video playing, and I'll show you how to use the green screen towards the end of this talk. So no, so this is okay. So Dr. Sanders, so your question is what you have shown is the creation of a video, correct? What I have shown you, so you're not really, so OBS Studio is not about creating projects. OBS Studio is about synchronous dynamic presentations. And what you're seeing here is a presentation of where I can flip from one to the other in order for us to have an education. Now, this is not about the creation of a video. What you're seeing, what I'm doing right now is in real time. Okay, so what you can do in terms of a completed project would be about the use of OBS to create a dynamic learning environment. And for example, when this video, when you in this conference, once this talk is over, there will be a video link. So this is not about the completion of a project, because the endpoint of this project is merely a video. Okay, but what I'm doing right now is showing you how to use OBS Studio for your own education. So it's about education and dynamic presentations, right? And but rather than just say, well, I've got a cam or I've got a voiceover, and there's a PowerPoint going on in the background. What I'm showing you is how you can make your presentations dynamic. That if you want to demo an Excel spreadsheet, if you want to demo a Word document, if you want to demo a PowerPoint, at the same time, if you want to show a movie, OBS is the best way to do it in real time, in a synchronous way. I hope that's clear. Now,
But you can record your live presentation, right?
that is correct. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Now, I'm glad you guys are recording it, because what the Zoom window, I'm grateful, Dr. Sanders, that I was able to clarify that. But now I'm going to the next part of it, right? So while you're doing your OBS Studio, right now, it's like synchronous learning versus asynchronous learning, right? Sometimes people don't pay attention to the whole thing, and you would say, I need to record it. Now, I'm not recording the screen because you guys are recording it, and you're recording the Zoom window. So you will see here, and you can see where my mouse is pointing, and this is correct, that Bob mentioned. Let's say at the beginning of my presentation, you say, well, I'm going to teach this synchronously, but I also have an asynchronous, I'll have this recording on a video, and that is going to be an asynchronous recording. So what you'll do here is you will click the start record button. And when you're done, you'll click the stop record button. We can also talk about some other things also. So when we talk about the start record button, it'll start record. But the reason why I'm not recording this is because I wanted to demonstrate features of it, right? If I did the recording part of it, if I start recording, which is what I do when I teach my classes, is you're only going to get a recording of the OBS screen, right? You'll only get a recording of this. You're not going to get anything else, because but through the Zoom right now, we're using the Zoom record feature. But so then what happens is, as a teaching thing of using OBS, I can't really do it. But the students are just interested in seeing the recording. So I record it. I put it in like some free video editing system. And because what happens during the part of an education, you might make an off-the-cuff remark, or somebody might ask a question, and there's a big guffaw which lasts about 25 seconds. So when this will, yes, so that's correct. It starts a recording, and it'll actually save it as something called as an MKV file in your wherever your video is stored, and then you can kind of move it into a simple editing software and take care of this. Right now, I'm not recording this because I'm using the Zoom feature to record, because again, just to repeat, the recording will only show this part. but I wanted to show the demonstration and the features of the rest of it. Okay, now what you'll see also is, and let me go from one to the other. So I go from PowerPoint to web to webcam. And you see what is happening is I'm getting certain transitions, right? You're getting a transition. So sometimes you want, like, should the transition be a quick transition? Should it be a slow transition? Should it be an instantaneous transition? What kind of transition do I want? So for that, we look at another, let me just keep this open. You see where my mouse is pointing? That's another transition. Okay, so let's play around a little bit with that. So I'm just going to focus on this part, and you say, I have set the transition to fade. And when I say transition, it goes from scene to scene to scene, much like in a movie, right? So you might say, I want to go from PowerPoint to the web, to my cam, to a browser, to a Word document. How do I transition when I go from scene to scene? So here you have different options. So I'll show you. So let's just go to cut. Okay, and cut means instant, right? So let me go back and see what happens when you do cut. And it's a little abrupt, and that's perfectly fine if that's what you want. So I'll just go between, for example, the webcam feature, which is here, to the web feature. So you see it's instantaneous. It's just sudden, it's very abrupt, and that's perfectly fine if that's what you want. Typically, when I teach a class, I want to make the transition from one scene to the other a little softer, right? So from there, I can go to fade. And the moment I go to, because cut is abrupt and instantaneous, fade, I can say, well, 500 milliseconds, so the duration can be, half a second. I can also, go to 1000 milliseconds, and in which case the fade, and we can just check on the fade at 1000 milliseconds, it'll be a lot slower. Okay, if you want the fade from one to the other to be a lot softer. So you can see that's the fade, right? You can see it's a lot softer. Let's try another feature. There is something called as a Luna wipe, which I have here, a Luna wipe. And then that also is a transition that you can have. And let's see what that is. And again, it's kind of a personal preference. I always use the fade of half a second just to soften the transition. So let's go to webcam. So that's the Luna wipe. Okay, you can do other things like just let me make this a little bigger. You can do other things. So that's a wipe. So again, it's cool. It offers all these features. One thing you also want to do is every time you open your OBS, it's going to say there's new stuff in here, right? There is new. We have some a newer version is available, and certainly it doesn't take much. You click on it, it runs, it installs it. It's a few seconds. It looks like the reinstallation of new features is incremental, so it doesn't kind of do an entire thing. Just doesn't do an entire thing. So let's go to something else. So I have only cut and fade, but if I click on the plus sign here, I'll go to many things like something called stinger, something called swipe, something called fade to color. And when you go to fade to color, it's I suppose it offers you enter the name of transition. I don't know when I can call it orange and whether it'll make a difference. I have not tried it, but it's a feature you can try. And yes, you can. So you can select the color, and I'm going to say fade to orange. So let's make this a little bigger, and I can say fade to orange. Okay, and I say okay, and I say it's a 50% fade. So if I can preview the transition, okay, and so now let's try it. I say, okay, so let's try it. Now the moment you've added a transition, and there are many different ones. Now, remember, we had cut, fade, Luna wipe, and I call another transition orange. So let's see how it works. It actually might not be very pleasing to the eye, but let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go from webcam to I suspect that we can do with a nicer color. When you are using OBS in a class, are students seeing the OBS toolbar at the bottom? No, all they see is this part, right? All they see is this part. And because at the end, that is the presentation. Thank you, Bob. That is the presentation, and all they are interested in the presentation. what the audience in this fantastic group is about how to use OBS. And that's why I'm using the Zoom window, so I can kind of, I can focus in, expand out, so you can actually see the thing happening in real time. And obviously, this is a 15-minute presentation. You cannot, cannot remember everything. So that's why this is going to be recorded, so they wouldn't see the dashboard. And I actually was giving this presentation some time ago, and I just said, oh, I'm just going to start recording. And then it didn't make a lot of sense, because all it recorded was the screen as the students see it. So certainly the Zoom window certainly helps, right? So again, if this is of interest to you, you do it yourself. You kind of view the recording, pause it, rewind it, look at various ways in which you can try different things. Okay, so we have that orange transition. I obviously don't like it very much, so I'm just going to call it fade, and we're going to go to 500 milliseconds. So that's basically, and you can also, you can use the delete button here to take away. It's exactly the same kind of features. If I wanted to, add a scene, versus I can go on that scene and delete that scene. Or for example, within that particular scene, if I want some resources, I can do cam, cam and browser. And typically I do cam and browser. I don't need to, clutter the whole thing, because what they want is kind of that seamless notion of the teacher being always continuously engaged. So but it's off in the corner, and then now it's really interesting. I was teaching this class, and it was supposed to be a face-to-face class, and I think I need a lot of software. And so in the class which has a presentation, that default computer didn't really have the software. And while I was getting our IT to do that, incidentally, they haven't gotten back to me. It's been a month now. I said, okay, guys, let's have the class face to face, sorry, online. And so I did a synchronous thing. And, immediately I had a little, in the middle of the class, I said, I had a little poll on Zoom, and I said, how many of you would like to do this online thing? And I think it's a class of 15. It's a graduate class, so it's not a huge class. And about 3 of them said, no, we would like face to face. And the rest of them said, no, online is preferable. And there were a couple who said, we don't care either way. And one of the students who said, it's not engaging. You can't engage with the faculty. And she's a very, I like her. She's a very active student. She always asks questions, always has doubts, and then so we have this class to Zoom, and now it's like, no, I'm not really missing much, right? So rather than have the instructor, just talk in the background, what this does is it really, gives people a chance to engage. And the fact that that when coupled with Zoom, for example, I'm watching, if you have a question, if you have a doubt, I'm watching what's going on. Now, there is something else here which I will show you. It's called studio mode. Okay, so here you can see that there is something called a studio mode. So if I click studio mode, it will go into it's kind of a dual thing. As in terms of watching, you'll still watch one thing, but the other one is, as you can see, the other one. So for example, and again, I wouldn't mess around with this too much in an education environment, because yes, you can do studio mode, but if you were doing like a blog presentation, it would be nice, because on one side you could you could put a PowerPoint which says, we'll be back shortly, right? On the other one, so the one which you have the red button, that's the live one. And then the other one on this side that my mouse is pointing to is the kind of the standby mode. Now you can switch, it becomes very slick, but in an educational environment where you have to, make sure that you're looking at the chat, you're working on questions, and you have graduate level material that you have to focus on teaching, it becomes a little to come. But for example, I can go in here and switch here, and so I can cut between one to the other. See, so I have one of them in standby, and you can see one versus the other, right? So I can, but the web page is not open. But for example, I can have my webcam here, and then I can cut between whatever view I want versus whatever view that can. That's basically called studio mode. Now, even this cut transition, I can have fade and lunar wipe. Now, what happens in this transition is whatever features I used here in the scene transition, they get accommodated. But remember how I told you I never had orange. Now we created a new scene or a new transition, and we called it orange because the color was orange. And it's at 300 millisecond. I could go to cut, and cut would be instantaneous. And if I cut, it goes from back and forth, right? If I went to the fade, it would go a little slower. The transition would be a little softer. Okay, we're about 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one more feature. Now, in anything that I have demonstrated so far, let me get out of studio mode. And let me go to essentially just a web mode or a PowerPoint mode. What you see here is a that you can see that I'm working, that whatever the background of my office is showing up here, right? And what happens if you say, well, it's a little off-putting because I want to make it seamless. I want to make my photograph, the background of my screen almost feel like I'm actually coming straight out of the screen. So let's let's do this, okay? So let me now we're talking pure Hollywood here, okay? So I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh. Give me 1 second. You can watch me do this. So I have behind me a screen, and you see the screen is already set up. It's actually green in color, but it's already set up here to present. So what I'm doing is it cost me the equivalent of $3 to get a bunch of green paper and stick it, and you can see it far away. Okay, so it's set up correctly. So I'll show you how to set it up. So I'm just going to jam it in the backrest of my chair. As I said, we are talking Hollywood, not quite Hollywood here, and you can see the little green edge, which is not really how I should do it, but this is one way. How do you do it? So let me pull the cam a little closer. This is again not quite Hollywood, but I've just jammed it in the back of my screen. It actually is green in color. So what you would do if you wanted to change it, so let's go to the webcam, because that's what I want to change. And let me lift this up a little bit. It's the last part of the it's the last part of the presentation which I have. But if you have a green screen and it's not lit, it's not colored, it's not doing anything weird. But let's say you had this green screen in the back. Now it's actually green in color, right? And one of the things, how do you set it up? So I have here the cam, right? And because it's a cam, because it's a Windows source, I can right click on it, on the cam, and I go to filters. And if I go to filters, I have let me delete that. Okay, so I go to filters. Yes, I'm sure I want. So now you can see that's the green screen, right? It's actually green in color. So I go to filters here, right here, and I hit plus, and I want what is called as chroma key. Okay, and I'm just going to call it chroma key, and that's perfectly okay. And I know the color in my background is the color that I'm using is green. Okay, now remember the point of green screen. The reason why you see this weird green edge around me is because we have because you're supposed to kind of soften the light and things like that, right? And so what you'll see here is green, and I'm just going to accept the defaults, and I'm going to close it, and you'll see this green screen. So now the moment I have this green screen, because we know it's green, again, right click on the cam part, on the visual source, go to filters, and then click on chroma key. Now, if I was really smart at this, what I would do is, now, and I'll show you one more feature in the chroma key. If, for example, you see green, you could have a blue screen background, you could have magenta, or you could have custom. So because the back of my room is kind of this creamish color, which is typical of offices, I can go and find the exact same, like if I click custom, for example, it'll give me that hexadecimal code for the color, so I can maybe select something. So this way, the actual background to my, so I don't have to do this gymnastics to get this thing jammed in the backrest of my chair. I could potentially select a color and then find something that matches my office, right? And I'm not going to do it right now, but this just tells you how to do this. And I hit close. And so now what happens is, because I have this, and again, as you can see, I'm not doing a really good job about it. You can see if this was correctly done, it would feel like, if I had the lighting, etc., proper, you would actually feel that I was just kind of popping out of this, as opposed to a kind of a contrasting background. Okay, it's 9:50. This is all I had to say. I appreciate your time and the questions. Obviously, I'm going to be sitting here. Let me go back to one thing I had talked about. Obviously, this video will be available for people to to view. And if you have any questions, I've included my email address, Chiquito, first name dot last name at ttu.edu, or chiquito.crasto at gmail.com. And if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to sit down with you. There's another question from Elena. Okay, thank you, Elena. But there was another question from Dr. Sanders. If
Well,
you choose to record,
I have a comment.
yes,
Couple of things. One, it's like how you're using it now, integrated into Zoom. Essentially, once you get that loaded, Zoom, when you choose your video, normally you just select the webcam. With OBS, it'll have that as an option. So you would just choose that. It's very simple to do.
yes,
I've
yes,
done,
yes,
I've used OBS Studio for some Facebook Live
yes,
presentations. And again, Facebook Live just lets me choose OBS as a source. It's
right.
really very simple.
You
Uh,
can do a Google Meets presentation. And actually, it's like this. It goes through, and I'll show you just a couple of things. Because you brought it up, I'm glad you brought it up, Bob. The start streaming option. The start streaming option will take you, this option here will take you to all the potential options that are available. So you can stream through Twitch, you can stream through YouTube, you can stream through Facebook Live, you can stream through Twitter, and there are a whole bunch of other things you can stream through. Now, whenever you stream through each of these, you have to make sure that you kind of create this in advance. And this includes Zoom. You create this in advance, where you actually have you have an account, you're set up on YouTube correctly. So it actually, what Zoom does is it synchronizes with whatever streaming you want to do. So this is something you can try. If you have YouTube, if you have Facebook Live, as Bob says, you can also do Zoom. So yes, you can incorporate it as part of the kind of the teaching of how to use Zoom. I had to kind of show you the dashboard and everything. So Dr. Sanders says, if you choose to record regularly, is there a threshold that OBS holds you to? So if I understand your question correctly, I teach once a week, 3 hours a day. 3 hours. It's a 3-hour class, and give or take with all the thing, I would say it ends up being a 2.5-hour video, and it just stores it as a video. And once it starts recording and you store it as a video, you're done. Then you can use it. So no, I mean, you could do this as many times as you want. I suspect some of these people who use YouTube streaming to have people show you and there's one more thing I want to talk about also. If they might sit there for 5.5 hours playing video games, and you can so there is no threshold. There's nothing like that. One more thing I wanted to show you, and that is hotkeys. Okay, so if you look at these hotkeys, and let me focus a little bit on it. I typically use hotkeys, but what I did was I deleted because I wanted to show a lot of stuff here from scratch. So if you look at these hotkeys, now remember how, I had to kind of scroll up and down and click webcam and the browser scene. So if you want to go from scene to scene to scene, you can also, by the way, use the OBS as a virtual camera. You can take each of these, like start streaming, stop recording, go from one scene to the other, and you can actually, like, you can say, oh, if I hit F4, it should start a presentation. If I hit F6, it should stop a presentation. So you could, like, for example, if I say start virtual camera or enable preview or disable preview, if I say start streaming and I say I want start streaming to be my F8, it's going to show up as F8. Okay, and then if I say stop streaming has to be F9, it shows up as F9. And once I save it and I'm done, okay, if I've saved it and done, every time if I hit F8, it starts streaming. You can have the same thing for start recording, stop recording. So this way you don't have to kind of drag the mouse back and forth. Your hotkeys can do it, and you guys can kind of experiment it. So very feature rich. I'm sure. I wanted to kind of, how does one teach? How does one teach a class? How does one teach a class was my primary interest here. But once you kind of get over that single kind of that learning curve hump, okay, I can create a scene, I can go into the scene and create all kinds of fun things within a scene. Then that is essentially, this presentation is designed for you not to be kind of scared of it, because that's the first thing I said, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the most feature rich, but it's also has a learning curve. Will I be able to do it? So, I hope you get started. It'll help you get started. If you have any emails that you want to send me, if you have a question, that you want to do something, or there's something in the presentation that you didn't understand because I kind of glossed over it or mumbled through it, do not hesitate to contact me. First name dot last name at Gmail. And I appreciate all the kind words from those of you who entered and communicated by chat.
I will add, yeah, you're right, it has a learning curve, but the documentation that comes with it is very good. Uh, they've really broken it down to, individual, how do I, how-to sheets, how do I want to do this? And the
Yes.
documentation is there. It's the kind of thing you can play with. As someone who has a bachelor's in TV production, uh, I use the studio
Yeah.
mode only because I'm used to that. For me, I can look at it and preview to make sure what I'm showing next is correct.
Right.
But it's open source, great documentation. It's the kind of thing you really just need to go and start slow, play with it, and kind of build on it. And we are out of time. And Sakio, I appreciate you taking us through this. I think folks have some ideas. As you play with it, you'll come up with a lot of ideas on how you can enhance presentations. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and appreciate you guys showing up once again. If you have any questions, secondly, if you want to do a particular thing, you can always type that particular thing in YouTube, and somebody will have a video ready for
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Not for this one. So
that's a nice
uh,
thing.
yeah, it's all very easy to do, but it's not